entrepreneur will think, okay, how I get exposed to the next web, how I get some media attention, I don't know.
So yeah, email spamming is actually what most people do. I get lots of that in my inbox, even though I'm a freelancer, so I'm a contributor. I'm not exactly in the staff. My email is not necessarily on the website. My email is not on the next web domain, and so on. But yeah, lots of people do that. And it makes no sense at all. Like normally, like you won't even have like 1% conversion from that kind of email. Most journalists say that it really makes sense to meet in person on conferences or like wherever you can. That really makes sense. It might be a bit tricky if you live in Moldova or in Ukraine, for that matter, or in any country far away from the markets you want to get exposure on. So yeah, the best thing is first think about your goals, think about your media. Got the emails and send pictures, but not like. Switch on. Oh, is it actually off? So I've been talking into. That's fine.
Sorry, Andrii, I just was hearing so.
I thought it wasn't loud enough, but yeah, I thought I had a problem with my ears. Sorry.
Sorry about this. I'm sorry.
So yeah, and where was I? So yeah, the idea is that you write not like canned pitches, but you think you go ahead and do some research on what kind of stories journalists write, what kind of beat they are on, what are their specialization within their publication. And that's where you start, and that's what you use to craft the right kind of pitch for the person.
What should be a story about? Like, what is attractive for a journalist? Should it be like, I don't know, like here, for instance, people write about politics or about murders. I'm sorry, but this is the main news what I hear, because I'm like, for the last time, I'm just disconnected from the news, local news. I just banned those websites because it's a lot of this stuff which is kind of very negative, I would say. So, but in the tech world, in the startup world, what is attractive? What can make kind of an interest for journalists?
Well, yeah. When I'm talking about media, I'm talking about tech media. First of all, I'm not that good at understanding how the normal media work. But the main thing, I guess, is that everyone wants to get into the news. And that normally doesn't really work for startups from our region. That's pretty hard because for tech media, the news would be either funded north of $5 million or something like that, which doesn't really happen every day in our parts of the world, and or big partnerships, either with big corporates or with some cool kids in terms of startups, which again is not happening very often. So I would say that the best way to get into the media, to get exposure, would be to find some topic you're expert in, and then pitch a story about this. So more of a long-form story and not necessarily a news story. If you have a product, if it's a really cool product, you can pitch. You can pitch the product, you can offer your product for a review, and so on and so forth. But if you don't have a product, or your product is boring, which is okay, you better just find something you can talk about, find something you're expert in, find something that would be interesting for the journalists that you have chosen.
Very interesting. Okay, so basically go, then a more personal approach, like go to events or research the website, understand what the journalist writes about, and then kind of find the right niche for your idea. Then if you don't have raised money or you're kind of not famous, become more expert, pitch a story about your expertise, or try to offer demo if you have a cool product, but try to get them...
Actually, it's not even necessarily your expertise, but just something that helps you stand out of the startup crowd. Like once I usually give an example of a company. It's from Ukraine, like it's Ukrainian/Dutch company. It's called GitLab. It's a sort of a GitHub rival for the simplicity of it. I met them at the Next Web conference a few years ago, and there was really nothing that interesting about them until one of the founders mentioned that they are building the company and they are growing, but at the same time they only have 0.1% of paying customers. So yeah, that was already something interesting, and that was what I got into the headline of the story, and the story was quite well viewed. So yeah, it could be just something. So just something that makes you unique, makes your story unique.
Interesting. Nice. Okay. So at this point, I think I'm getting it like all the way through. I'm trying to understand if there is something missing once I get the page, and if that's interesting then. But if I don't, let's say there is no reply, okay, I wrote an email, I met someone at the conference, or usually it has a reply, or...
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So what should I wait for 6 months, maybe a story comes, or should I find another, maybe more smaller publication, I don't know. And then
yeah, I see what you mean. Well, first of all, you said write an email. That's actually worth emphasizing. You write an email. Yes. You do not pitch through Twitter. You do not pitch through Facebook messages. You do not pitch through Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else. I just recently came to see an interesting survey that guys from MacRec did with a few American journalists. And it was like 93% of journalists said that they would like to be pitched through email, while all the other channels accounted for 7%. So yeah, wow. It's better not to invent the wheel and go for email. And then about follow-ups, it's okay to follow up. Like you send a pitch, you wait for, I don't know, 3 to 5 months, check the person's Twitter, make sure they are not on a holiday somewhere in the desert without the internet. And if they don't reply you within 3 to 5 days, go ahead, follow up. But it's a good thing not to do it too many times. Just once is enough. If you don't get a reply from your second email, just forget it, switch to another publication. And then again, what you said about getting to smaller publications, that also makes sense. Mm-hmm. And also, it's interesting sometimes to find publications that would be like niche ones. If you are working in a certain industry, like e-commerce or drones or whatever else, it might make sense to actually go to the industry publications, to industry websites. They usually don't have that much of resources, and they would be much more willing to take guest columns, opinions, guest posts, or just run a story about your company. And this is a good place to start, and then to use this kind of publication to promote yourself towards larger media. And also that by the way goes for local media as well. I'm not sure if there is an English language tech publication about Moldova startups. Is there?
Some regional thing with the name. It's a new bunch. It's a startup. 150
seconds. Yeah, but they're nice guys. So yeah, that's again always a good place to start, to go to a regional publication. They again would be much more willing to run your story just because they purposefully are looking for stories coming from this particular corner of the world. So they would be interested in you by default. And these regional publications sometimes are used by more mainstream media as syndication partners, or just like as partners they source stories from. So you can actually get from there to a bigger place. Like for example, there are these two websites called UADN and EWDN. It's Russian and Ukrainian digital use. And these are being used by VentureBeat, for example. Sometimes some stories from there end up at VentureBeat.
Okay, so wanted to move a bit. Maybe are there any more questions of PR, because wanted to change a bit perspective. Maybe someone wants to ask, but if not, maybe afterwards we'll take in some questions. But wanted to change a bit perspective on like from your kind of understanding, what is this region about? I mean, let's say Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine. So this kind of I don't know, Black Sea region, whatever. Like, what is your kind of thought on this? What is the startup community here? For instance, your first time in Moldova, maybe some countries around. Where can we be unique? What can be an unfair advantage? I don't know, maybe from your perspective. How do you see it, like, because you're covering startups in this kind of, what do you see in the startups? What is different? What can we learn from our own kind of identity?
Well, what's easy to see is that we all have a lot of technical talent, right? So some pretty good, like technical schools. We have lots of developers, QA engineers, and so on. But at the same time, we are not as good as Americans when it comes to marketing and sales and things like that. So we are good at we are good at being technical, and that's where most of these regions, startup ecosystems grow from, appear to be growing from, at least. And another advantage is the price of this talent. Like salaries are much lower in Moldova, in Ukraine, in Bulgaria, than there would be in the Netherlands or even or the Silicon Valley. Which means at the same time that the cost of a mistake, the cost of failure, is much lower here than it would be in Western Europe or Silicon Valley. So basically, it means more freedom to experiment, which I see some people already are using to their advantage, and I really do hope that more people will do that. Just go, try, fail, rinse and repeat. That's the spirit of the region.
You know, here people are scared to fail. This is our culture, kind of DNA. But I think failure is good experiment, kind of learn, try and error, and until you finish, until you get it. So, and you here have kind of advantage of that. You can do it cheap, at least compared to what costs you in the US or Europe.
Especially if you raise money in the Valley or in Western Europe.
True. How about, so why Amsterdam? Why move there? I mean, just was wondering, why this city? What is unique there?
Well, Amsterdam is like probably the most conscious decision of our family was to move to Amsterdam. It's just because it appears to be the best city in the world, for us at least. So yeah, we've been going around Europe. And in Amsterdam, the startup ecosystem is also very vibrant. It's relatively young, like older than in Ukraine or in Moldova, but younger than in the US, for example. But it's very interesting. They have lots of energy startups right now. They have lots of deeply scientific startups, for example. So there are two accelerators. So everything is very interesting right there right
I mean,
now.
like energy, like solar energy, panel energy, or
like all kinds of smart energy applications, from alternative energy sources, sustainability, smart homes, and so on and so forth. Everything that could be used for this.
Interesting. I never thought in Netherlands that's one of the main kind of.
I'm not sure they are like one of the main suppliers of the startups in this niche, but at least I see a lot of new teams, new products in that area. And the government is doing a lot of things right now in Amsterdam and in Netherlands as a whole to help this movement.
I see. are any kind of I don't know support programs there? Maybe you can talk about that. Or let's say I'm here in Moldova, I have product, I have an idea. I don't know. Do you have any programs? Maybe, for instance, the place I'm in impacts my outcome. So maybe there I can have greater outcome because of some facilities, customers, businesses. So do you know some, maybe in Amsterdam will be an option. Should I move there, or when should I move there, or should I stay here? Because there is a trade-off. The costs are higher, of course, but also you win some other things.
Well, it's a hard question, but when and if a startup should move somewhere else. But like the best and the most probably logical way to move would be through an accelerator. So there are accelerators in Amsterdam. There are accelerators in other Western European countries. Probably the most active country in terms of trying to get startups from abroad, I think, is Ireland. And yeah, Ireland is doing a lot. They have this special program that is called High Potential Startup Program. They have a sort of a competition for startups going on twice a year, and the prize of it is 50,000 in funding, and also you move to Ireland. Like 50,000 is they have these startup visas, Irish startup visa, and its main requirement is to have 50,000 in funded from an Irish investor. So that's basically what they give you, and that enables you to move there. In the Netherlands, there is also a startup visa. They've just improved it a bit. It used to be for 1 year, now it's for 3 years. They are also very interested in attracting startups from abroad. So yeah, I guess if you wanted to go, probably the smarter way would be to leave the technical team here and go there wherever you want.
Like business there, technical here. Cool. I just wanted to be more engaged with the audience and like not just me asking, maybe more people want to ask specific questions for their kind of reality, so I'll just walk just time. So I know we're a culture more like closed culture, but I will insist.
Time to change it.
Time to change, right. I will insist, so maybe someone wants to... Yes, awesome.
Hey Andrew, my question is the following. I think you are aware about some kind of media platforms which are grassroots media platforms. I mean, not from a corporate world or not the big things, big players like maybe Reddit or something similar. How would you compare these grassroots media sources with corporate world, and how would you compare effectiveness of promoting your product using this independent media sources?
Well, that's a good question which I'm not really ready to answer fully, probably because I haven't ever tried to compare these two things. And again, Reddit is not necessarily a medium. Reddit as a place is a media aggregator, right? So it's a bit different. From Reddit, you still go to those media that we call the corporates, which are not, by the way. Like the Next Web itself, for example, started as a conference which decided to have a small blog on its website, and then within like 6 years, it became one of the most popular tech blogs over the internet. I would say that Product Hunt, for example, is a sort of thing that you mean, and that is quite good and in promoting yourself without actually having to deal with journalists or whoever else. Just send your product to Product Hunt, and if it's cool, if it's really cool, people will flock.
Okay, it's clear. Thanks.
But still, I would say that dealing with the actual media is important and should not be ignored altogether.
Okay, I have another question. I think you have a lot of experience in communication with startups and this media world and different. You have so different topics, a lot of topics. Do you have some idea about some kind of trends? I mean, trending technologies or something like that. What can catch the attention of media and readers in terms of discourse? Do you see some trends there?
The thing is, it really like changes every week. To be honest, like last month was the month of Pokemon Go and all kinds of augmented reality apps. Right now, with with Apple's new announcement, we're going to have a lot of wireless sound things. Generally, it would be probably smart energy, Internet of Things, virtual reality, things like that right now.
Yeah, okay. I think also blockchain.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, thanks.
And bots also.
Oh yeah, chatbots. If there are people old enough to remember IRC channels, things really go like as a spiral. We had bots 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but we didn't know it.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Somebody else? I wanted to, maybe people are more close, but anyway, I wanted to ask you, so, of course, just couple of hours you are here, but what you notice in this country, I mean, if you were to start a startup, maybe, I don't know, but maybe you notice some ideas or like some patterns or some insights came to you. What is this country about? Maybe some characteristics of this country from what you saw?
I'm not sure I have seen enough.
Yeah.
I just met 3 people and spent a few hours in town. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure I can.
But what you like? I mean, what didn't like? I mean, maybe something.
What surprised me is that at least 2 people praised the level at which at least the younger people in Moldova speak English, which is a great thing, which is something we probably lack still in Ukraine. That really pleasantly surprised me, if it's really so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's fine. I just was wondering how someone from abroad can see what is inside.
I mean, don't forget, I'm from Ukraine, so many things don't surprise me that would surprise someone coming from the Western world.
Of course, yeah. Cool. Yes.
Hi, my name is Yana. I have this question. You are writing about all these startups. When you are writing, you are not having this, oh, I could do that, or what? I mean, how you deal with all these ideas? Because a lot of people think here that I will tell my idea and someone will steal my idea. So how you deal with all these ideas, and how many ideas you thought to do by yourself? How many startups you are planning to have in the next 10 years? I don't know.
You know, I seriously have never ever had this feeling of I could do that or I should do that. So because I just like writing. I mean, I'm okay with this. So I guess the only industry I would really want to do a startup in would be actually media strategy and journalism. So that's something that interests me. That's something I'm thinking about. And with this, with startups in that industry, I did a couple of times think that I could do something that other startups do, but those were not pitched to me anyways. And yeah, the idea itself, I mean, it costs nothing, as we all know already. It's the execution that matters, and yeah, it doesn't make sense to be afraid of telling people your ideas. Actually, all ideas get better if they are pitched to everyone around you. If you keep bothering everyone around you talking about your idea, it only gets better.
Do you think writing is just a matter of talent, or it gets a lot better if you have a lot of experience? I mean, from the first day you are starting to write till, I don't know, in 5 years, you think it's just you have to have talent for writing and then improve, or you just can have zero talent and then improve and be maybe better than
I mean, it's not a matter of talent. I think it's just it's a craft. It's a craft that you get better in with the more experience you get, the better you get in it.
And this is about all the writings, or just your about?
Well, this is about journalism, first of all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Like creative writing is different. Writing novels and poems is very different, I guess.
I'll ask our question. Usually at Dreamups we ask the Peter Field question. If you know, you don't.
Not sure.
That's no. Anyway, a question about like what is one thing that everyone agrees on but you disagree? Like what is one thing that you think other people are missing or just don't get it, but you think that's right?
Well, we just mentioned the chatbots. I disagree that chatbots are cool. I don't use them. I don't see how they are better than a good UI. I don't think it makes any sense to enter questions in any way, be it voice or keyboard, and not just use good predictive UI.
Interesting. Cool.
So yeah, don't pitch me chatbots.
There is one chatbot I wanted to pitch to you. Sorry. Cool. Maybe some more from the audience. Kind of passive. I don't know. Maybe because it's still holidays. You know, in the country, people like August. It's kind of holiday season, but it looks like September is also holiday because it's like coming after holidays. So it's still.
Yeah. You need to get some rest, right?
Yeah. You need to get rest from holidays, so that's what happens.
Whenever you need to get some rest from holidays, it means you've had a good holiday.
Do you believe, do you believe it's like a matter of, in a startup world, like from the founders, from the stories, so do you believe it's like, it's a matter of money, like investment? Is it a matter of the kind of the idea, the product itself, or is it about the team, or is it about, I don't know, where are you? Are you here or are you, I don't know, in Silicon Valley or Amsterdam or whatever? What is that thing that you think is like kind of crucial in this kind of equation? Of course, all of them are important, but what makes kind of the leap of the success?
I think it's about persistence first of all. So it's about the founder, it's about their persistence. If you really do feel passionate about the thing you're doing, if you really cannot live without doing it one way or the other, you either fail spectacular 10 times or 20 times or 50 times, but at the end you probably will do the thing.
It's like, it reminds me of a kid, like a child that wants an ice cream, I don't know, and it bothers the parents, whatever, who is around to get that ice cream and finally gets it. So it's kind of that kind of metaphoric thing. I imagine in my head, what is a founder about, you know, it's like...
Have you already received your metaphoric ice cream?
Yeah, it's sort of... Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, usually it's warming up and then a lot of questions, you cannot get it.
Yeah, let's put some heat. Okay, so a little bit of philosophical question now comes. Have you ever had this feeling of such a thought, like, what am I doing? What is my value for this world, like society, economy? And if yes, do you have the answer to this question?
Well, I absolutely have. I'm having it once per quarter, something like this. It's hard to answer. I mean, I answer every time differently to myself to this question. I mean, there is even though there are so many already automated ways of information distribution, people, I guess, journalists first of all, still do matter in this, and getting, I mean, journalism, like in tech, journalism is still about helping people, different people, to achieve different things, from survival to being successful, to finding something to do, to finding something to be involved with, and that I hope I am helping people with. So yeah. Sort of, I kind of feel that there is some value I bring to this world, but not enough yet. So I'm on it.
Okay, thank you. And the follow-up question, since I have the microphone now. So, what do you think is the value of a startup? Like, what a startup, a company, is designed to bring to the world?
That's a good question. Thanks. Unexpectedly deep. Like, all startups are different, first of all, and I wouldn't say, for example, that startups that deal with hunger in Africa are better as startups than any other startups that deal with, I don't know, energy problems or kids, anything like that. So startups are not, the value of startups are not necessarily, first of all, about the industry they are working in, but it's probably about, I don't know, hard to answer. Yes, it's about how many people they make feel better, and it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, again, the startup that has made one person feel better is not worse off than a startup that has made 1,000 people feel better. So that's all about this, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is David. I moved to Moldova 3 months ago. I'm a volunteer in Peace Corps. Back in America, I was the head of news and communications for a major university in America. So I did a lot of promotion to people like this, and was a journalist myself for many years, also on the other end of this. So I wanted to just take 2 minutes to give some advice, which largely corresponds to yours. But before I do that, I just want to say how inspiring it is to be in this room. I have to tell you that often when I've spoken to people in Moldova, I hear people tell me the problems the country has, the politics or the economy, and I just have a sense of optimism in this room. To do startup, you have to be optimistic, and I think it's so important for the future of the country, which is what people are doing here, just first of all. Okay, so I wanted to just add some advice to what Andrii said. So the first thing is news. He's in the news business and reporters are in news. So you always want to be thinking, what would be news? So if you have an event in 2 months or there's something happening, that's what a reporter needs to put it on TV or to put it in the newspaper. So always be thinking of that. You're going to be thinking, how can this help me? But you want to be thinking, why is this interesting to somebody else? Right? So maybe it's tech news, but maybe you're working on a product that's about health, or something that's interesting for parents, or about toys or sports. So each of those has its own audience, right? So you could go to the tech press, but if you're developing something, say, for parents and children, then you should be thinking about publications and everything for parents and so forth. That would be the second. Then I hear people say, well, I'm in Moldova, they're never going to cover me here. Yes, they will. And you have to think about turning what you may perceive as a disadvantage into an advantage. So if you're in America, you're getting pitched every 5 seconds by somebody in Silicon Valley or in Boston, and probably in Amsterdam or London. reporters at the Wall Street Journal or FT or wherever they are, they don't hear from people in Moldova very much. So if you can think of a story angle that's a little bit different, you actually have an advantage if you do it right. And then finally, I'd say you personally may be a story. So, you know, maybe you came into startups or into entrepreneurship through a really interesting personal story. Maybe your parents are telling you you're crazy. Maybe they're telling you should get married or you should go to university or go to, you know, maybe you have an interesting story to tell. That's a good story. People are stories. It's partly the product. But think about what you talk about with your friends at dinner, or when you want, you know, what's the kind of thing that you talk to them about? Yes, maybe it's the Java code, right? But it's probably, wow, did you hear what happened to her? And so you should think about that as well. What do you find interesting? What's the kind of things that you talk to your friends about? You know, and then reverse engineer it to try to come up with that for yourself.
Thank you. That's actually a great piece of advice. Thanks so much for this. And so yeah, and yes, using your geography as one of the possible angles that makes you unique is one of the things I also recommend to people pretty often.
Okay, so we are closer to the end, but yeah, one more.
Hi, my name is Radhika. Okay, so I would like to know just exclusively your opinion. So if you have an idea, or I have an idea, shall I go online writing about it, or shall I first produce something and then go online? Just from your opinion.
I would say it's better to start with actually make an MVP, and from that stage you can already figure out if you want to go to the media or you want to still go heads down and work more on this. Okay. But I guess having MVP would be a good prerequisite before going public.
Okay, thank you.
So a minimum viable product before.
Just have something to show.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. One more question. If you to have, we also ask this question here at Dreamups. Some sort of weird questions, but if you to have a superpower, like a Superman power, or whatever, what will that be? What superpower would you have? I can tell you what other people answered. Just for an example, like, I don't know, being invisible. It's one of the superpower. Reading thoughts. It's.
I would say it would be something like understanding all people's hidden motives in whatever they do. That would really help me work.
Like for journalism. Cool. Okay, so this is for tonight basically. Before we close, I wanted to thank our sponsors, Orange Moldova, all of them are here. Also USA, the Mobius Bank, and our media publications which are here. Before we close, also thank you for the photographer, for nice pictures. Thank you for coming. And we'll have some more space to talk individually, and also we'll be going to a pub, I suppose we can. Most probably somewhere in the center, so stay connected, and if you want to join us, we'll be going after the event to some place to talk more. Thank you very much for coming, and see you for our days.